this talk called to me because this is an intense time, right? Is there any doubt? It's an intense time. And I'm not just talking about political, because that's probably one of the first things that comes to mind, but I'm talking about climate, as we have our hottest service, it's getting a little hotter in here. Global affairs. There's just no area that you look today where it's not getting really intense. But I'm also talking about just life itself. Doesn't it seem that life itself is just kind of saying to you, does it ever say to you, wake up, like wake up, this is more than ordinary. This is something special is going on here. And the calendar, we all know that well, does anybody have physical calendars? Some people have physical calendars, right? That calendar, I have a physical calendar and my phone calendar, and that drives me nuts. But no matter what calendar you have, you just keep on flipping those pages faster and faster. And there's something about the intensity of this time that says, this time is precious. You remember when you're a baby or a small child and how long, like if someone said, you have to wait for an hour. Oh, how long and boring in the days before iPhones, how long and boring an hour could be. But as we go by, we realize, ooh, I get an hour. Like, it's so precious, and it goes by just like that. So I believe we're called here in this to be participative in this particular place, in this particular time, with this particular group of people, whether it's here in the sanctuary or in Zoom, or whether it's in the circles of people in your life, to do something wonderful. Not to be scared, but to do something wonderful. Yes, it can be scary. Obviously, the world can be a scary place, but we're here in this duality. Many of us believe that, we have a contract. We chose to be here on October 6, 2024 for a reason. We didn't just decide to show up in 1800 or some other time. We wanted to be here because of the particular things that we would bring. So my talk is called The Fierce Urgency of Now. And there are two fierces. I looked this up in the dictionary. Not a physical dictionary, but an online dictionary. And there are two definitions. The first definition is of fierce. The adjective is having an intense aggressiveness, powerful, wild, untamed, stormy, bitter, vicious, devastating. Now that kind of reminds me of the hurricane that's going on right now, or whether it's the metaphorical hurricanes of our life. This is what the universe and the conditions of the universe can throw at us, okay? But the other definition of fierce is definition 2, showing a heartfelt and powerful intensity. Isn't that nice? Showing a heartfelt and powerful intensity. And I think that's, well, and here's some words associated with it. Intense, strong, powerful, relentless, passionate. Intense, strong, relentless, passionate, powerful, right? Those are just beautiful words, and that's the kind of fierce that I think that we need to be. So regardless of these conditions that the universe is throwing to us in this ferocious way, we need to be ferocious back in with this ferocious compassion and this ferocious intensity that can come about as joy and love and healing. That's the ferociousness that I think we're called to have. And it's sort of like calling in the life force. We talked about that just a little bit during the meditation. I was talking about calling in. There's a group called Gypsy Soul, and they have a song that goes like this: I'm calling in all the powers inside of me. I'm calling into this moment everything that's true. And I just love that because it's really kind of summoning the life force and really marking that this moment is not just ordinary. I'm going to share a couple of stories of this, what I'm calling fierce urgency of now, and I'll tell you a little bit later on where I got that talk title from. But it's this fierce urgency of now that someone, have I talked to you about Nkosi Johnson before? Okay, if you haven't heard of Nkosi Johnson, this is a story worth worth hearing. Nkosi was born in severe poverty in a small township near Johannesburg in South Africa. And it was in a time when the community was being just devastated by AIDS. And his birth mother died of the disease, and he acquired it from her in the womb. Before his death, he was the longest surviving child with AIDS in South Africa. So at that time, it was remarkable for a child to live, who was HIV infected, to live past 2 years old. But he lived past 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and he went to grade school, and they refused to admit him because he was HIV positive. That was illegal against South African law, and it drew national attention. But he was kicked out of the school, and here's this little kid, grade schooler, and he said, I'm not going to give up because I have a message to send to the world. And he spent the rest of his life, which wasn't very long, he lived about 12 years, he spent the rest of his days advocating for awareness of HIV/AIDS, that people with it are people too. We're all human, we're all the same. And his message was heard around the world when he got to speak in front of 10,000 people, and this was also televised in front of a global audience at the 13th annual AIDS conference, International AIDS Conference. And despite his condition, his life force was strong. Have you ever known anybody that was afflicted with something, and yet they summoned, something happened, they summoned their life force. They summoned in a way where you just think, gosh, if something like that happened to me, would I be this strong? And there are so many role models out there that are just, they just grab life and they say, this life is mine, and they live it no matter what. And that's what Nkosi did. And Nkosi's creed, if there's one thing about Nkosi to remember, it's his creed. And he said this: do all you can with what you have, in the time that you have, in the place you are. I'll say that again. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. And this really, to me, captures the fierce urgency of now. That makes you feel energy just hearing it, doesn't it? So someone else who touched upon the fierce urgency of now, and I don't like all the things that this person did, but I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Steve Jobs did many great things, and he was also kind of a jerk in a lot of ways, right? But it's worthwhile paying attention to some of the visionary great things that he did. And one of the things that really stuck with me was when he talked to John Scully, who was the CEO of Coca-Cola at the time. He was trying to convince him, huh? Pepsi. Was it Pepsi? Okay. Similar sugar water. He said to John Scully, do you want to sell sugar water your whole life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? And so Scully did come with him. One of the other things that Steve Jobs did was actually not in the corporate world. He gave a commencement speech at Stanford in 2005. It was his most famous speech. It's very, if you haven't seen it, Google it or go to YouTube and just look for Steve Jobs' commencement speech, Stanford. And he says this. He says, your time is limited, so don't waste it on living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noises of other people's opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. So that really captures the intensity of now. I mean, for someone who, he dropped out of college, if I'm correct, and he would kind of audit calligraphy classes because he was just so in awe of the beauty of calligraphy, and he brought that into the typeface of the Mac, and he just followed his dreams. So, realize that every moment is sacred. You know, this is how we can capture the intensity of now, this fierce power of now. Realizing that there's no greater moment holier than this moment. Because in unity, if we believe in infinite potential and infinite possibilities, we don't say that some moment in history was great and this moment is not. We don't say that some person was great and I'm not. It must mean that when we tap into the infinity of who we are as sacred, right where you're sitting, is as special and sacred and significant and worthy as anything, anywhere, anytime. And that means today on October 6th, right? It doesn't mean the you that you were 20 years ago, right? It means today on October 6th. So how do we part of me thinks we need to kind of remind ourselves of this because it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to forget. Everywhere you look, it's about, this person did this and they're great because they're taking Ozempic and they're, I mean, you know what I mean? They're great because they're doing these things. It's like there's all these other scales and other measurements that the success is measured by. What about my measurement of success and my measurement of worth? Not letting someone else grade my report card for me. It's like walking around in life saying, here, will you grade my report card? Am I okay? Did I do great? You know, let's grade our own report cards and let's write our own curriculum for who we want to be. So how do you want to call in this sacredness? I think one thing is, ever heard of creating a ritual life? Now, I know some of you are doing this. Does anybody here have an altar at home? Yeah, a few of you. So there's an altar here, and it's just a simple way of, putting a flower out, putting a vase out. Some people put fruit out or a little, some precious objects or some crystals, but just have a little space that's special that you call your altar, and that can be part of ritual life. It could be part of saying, this is sacred. The things that I have, this stuff is vibrating with my energy. That's how I'm going to capture and mark the sacred me. So there's that, but there's also meditation. And people think that meditation needs to be, okay, I need to sit here and do this boring thing, right? For 15 minutes or half an hour. Oh, my friend just came from a week-long silent retreat, Josephine. You don't have to do that. There's a unity minister named Paulette Pipe, and she calls her meditation the temple bell moment. And what it is anytime, anywhere. It can be like in your car before you come into the building. It can be when you first wake up. You just take a deep breath, and maybe you just imagine this temple bell. And you just bring your mind to the appreciation of you. And that's a complete meditation. A complete meditation. That's all you need. Is just being aware, being mindful for just a moment. So that's a temple bell moment. That's a great way to mark the sacredness of things. Or maybe some of you who has a gratitude practice at the end of the day. You write things down, or at the beginning of the day, you affirm your intentions. So these are also ways of being having a ritual life. And I heard a minister in Santa Cruz talk about that. He's constantly doing rituals all day long, and I said, I need to be that way. That's kind of cool. So I'm gonna try that. This church, walking in here, is a ritual life. Your prayer is my prayer too. Everything that we do is this ritual that's marking time as precious, marking this time as precious. Speaking of precious, there is nothing that's ordinary. And did you know, who's ever shuffled a deck of cards? Okay. I'm no good at it, but I have. I have attempted many times to shuffle a deck of cards. But did you know that every time you shuffle a deck of cards, the resulting combination, if you lay all those cards out in the order that you got, is unique in all of history. Is unique in all of history. because the number of combinations that when you shuffle a deck of 52 cards, it's 8 times 67 zeros, okay? 10 to the 67th power. That's a number that's called vigintillion. I mean, it's a number I've never even heard of. Have you ever heard of that? Ron, have you ever heard of that number? It's just amazing. So, and they say that the number of possible shuffles is as great as the number of atoms on Earth. Who would have thought? I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to shuffle the cards, and then maybe a couple weeks from now I'll shuffle and I'll get the same order, right? I mean, I don't know. But the uniqueness of just the cards. So think about flowers. Think about your DNA. Think about your soul. Think about opportunities in the world. Think about how you could approach this day. Think about every song that's sang and every note that's played on the piano. Think about October 6th, 2024 at 11, whatever it is, a.m. Unique. Completely unique. Never to happen again. So everything is sacred. And you know, I think, you know how some things are recorded as memories in your brain and other things aren't? I have this theory. Why don't we try to make more memories? Because a lot of those memories are beautiful, precious things. When someone says, hey Juanita, what's the best of times? You know, hey Grant, right now. You know, hey Grant, what are the best of times? Now, when I hear that, I think of like 1980 something, right? Do you? Does anybody here think of like a time like in the past? What are the best of times? What do you think of? But I'm challenging us to say the best of times is not behind us. The best of times is not way out there. What if we thought that we're living the best of times, and we're going to look back on this day and go, God, those were the best of times. So to live in the moment as if these are the best of times every day, I think that's just a beautiful spiritual practice. To live each day as if it were your last and your first. Yeah, your last day and your first day. And I thought of that, the mayfly. Anybody know about the mayfly? So the mayfly, it's 1 day. Yeah, the mayfly's life expectancy. So it spends its adolescent years underwater, and then it hatches into an adult mayfly. Then the mayfly has 24 hours, sometimes 48, but the mayfly typically has a day to fly, to find friends, to mate, right? To find their life partner, to have offspring, right? To dance and to sing and to see the one sunset that the mayfly will see, right? And think about that. That mayfly is not going to stop to say, I wonder what my life purpose is. I'm going to take this course. No. The intensity is here. That mayfly is going to live life as if it's the most precious, precious thing, because it is. And we all know, they say life is short. So if we approach things with that consciousness of there's a spiritual teacher named Muji who said, what if you only had 1 day to live? What would you do? Who would you call? What would you say? 1 day. So that's an important question, I think. And if every moment is sacred, this can be the tipping point. This is where I believe our power comes in. This can be the tipping point. Remember Reverend Jacqueline talked last week about the 100 monkeys, how something like once the 100th monkey did a certain behavior, it's like, it caught on and it just spread. And that's a real scientific thing you can look up online. It's a tipping point that happened. So where can we be? The tipping point could be in this room to make great change. There's something called chaos theory. And chaos theory basically says that there is no chaos, there is no random. One subtle, small change, perhaps beginning with you, can change huge things downstream, can change huge things over time. So it could be a change in your attitude. It could be a prayer. It could be a partnership. It could be a relationship. It could be gratitude. It could be not complaining, right? It could be anything. So this is where I come to where I got this talk title. I got this talk title from an inspiring quote from Martin Luther King. And in 1967 in Riverside, one of the smoggiest places in the world, Riverside, he said, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now." Thank you for my talk title, Martin Luther King. "In this unfolding conundrum of life and of history, there is such a thing as being too late. There is no time for apathy or complacency or complaining. This is a time for vigorous and positive action." And I say that you don't have to do something that garners international attention, like Nkosi. It can be your prayer. That prayer can be the tipping point. It can be the joy that you radiate in your heart. But I believe all these things are more powerful when we embrace the now, not tomorrow, not the day after, today, October 6, 2024, as being powerful, sacred, and holy. And Grant, if you'd like to come up, I like to have a little backing music behind some of my prayers. So let's do this. Let's seal this message. As he's getting ready, this talk would be amiss if I didn't mention some of the wisdom of Eckhart Tolle, who wrote Power of Now. And he said, the past has no power over the present. The problem is that most humans are never fully present in the now because unconsciously they believe that the next moment will be more important than this moment. So don't fall trapped to thinking that the next moment is more important than this moment right here. Because if you do, you'll miss your whole life. So I say, let today be the first day of the rest of your life. And wake up each day that way. I know that I must do all I can with what I have, in the time that I have, in the place that I am. I know that I'm a sacred being, and I know that great things are going to happen today to me, for me, by me, and through me. So I claim happiness now. I choose it. I choose heaven right now. Why? Just because. Because I'm alive. I choose peace today. And I stand for being an emissary of peace no matter what happens. No matter what happens today, no matter what happens on November 5th, I claim joy. I claim peace. I claim happiness. I claim freedom. I claim health. I claim beauty. It's happening right now. It's happening each and every day. And my commitment is to be more aware, awake, and alive to this precious divine me in this moment now. And I carry that forth. Even if I just give that to one other person, I've done my work today. If I just give that to myself today, I've done my work today. From my higher self to my lower self, to my inner child, I'm reminding that inner child that you are precious, you are whole, you are perfect and complete, just as you are. Just as you are. I'm so grateful for this awareness. I'm so grateful for this sacred space called Unity Spiritual Center of San Francisco. And I'm so grateful for becoming more and more and more me. And so it is.
The power of now. is always present. Nowhere to be. Than where you are. The power of now flows so gracefully. The power of now is always perfect. Nothing to be than who you are. The power of now flows oh so easily. Be willing to let go of everything you think you need. Be strong enough to let go of everything you think you need to control. For everything goes away. Everything wash away. The power of now is ever flowing. Connecting us to all the one. The power of now unfolds so peacefully. Be willing to let go everything you think you need to know. Be strong enough to let go everything you need to control. For everything goes away. Let everything wash away. The power of now. The power of now. The power